after us in the afternoon. She was very independent that way of getting herself, ready to do things.
Time has greatly affected small-town organizations such as the Grange. Not just in Charlton, but all over America, focus has shifted away from such community gatherings.
The Grange was founded in 1867 after the Civil War and was organized to help farmers that were devastated by the Civil War. And over the years, it worked out well. It brought the farmers all together all across the country. And it really had a good start. There were usually about 200 people on the rolls back in those days. And then when television came in, the attendance and the membership dropped off. And people just didn't come anymore. We don't have very many people that come and look to join. Most people say they're too busy and they haven't time to do that. But we would love to have some new members come in to help us out on some of the things that we do and try to make things easier for those of us that are doing things. Right now, we only have about 36 members in the Grange, so it doesn't give an awful lot of membership to spread around to do projects. Anyone can join the Grange. The Grange is open to mother, father, and all the kids from 14 years and up. Those under 14 can join a junior Grange, and if we had enough kids, we certainly could have one here. But I think the good part of that is that they can all come to the same place and enjoy an evening, and if we had a lot more kids, we could do a lot more. The State Grange gives out good scholarships each year to a number of students across the state. And that's one thing that maybe we should be more aware of getting that out and telling people that we do that.
From around 1902 to 1928, the Worcester and Southbridge Railway operated a trolley through Charlton to Worcester, giving the town a means of public transportation.
Well, the trolley came to Charlton in 1902 after a number of years of petitioning the town to allow the electric railway to come in. The selectmen had originally held out as the proposal to run a spur line to Charlton Depot, and because the heavily trafficked railroad traffic would bring the people from Southbridge and Charlton directly to the depot. But the agreement was signed and they would put a spur towards the depot, and so the franchise was granted to the Worcester and Southbridge Street Railway Company. The interesting thing is they did put a spur line to the power station at Power Station Road in Charlton City, with just a short distance beyond towards Charlton Depot, but never finished it. So there actually was a spur line towards the depot, but not at the depot. Well, Charlton was mainly an agricultural town at that time, and Charlton Depot was the large business community. But Charlton Center had kind of been overlooked. It was strictly the governmental and the ecclesiastical center of town. But this opened up a whole new clientele for the transportation of people between the rural areas and the city. And so Charlton had the opportunity for the first time of having direct service to the city on a, I think, half-hourly basis for most of the year. And so we began to have people coming out from the city. The Masonic Home, which was formerly the Overlook Hotel, was built by the Southbridge and Worcester Street Railway Company at that time to attract people. And but you had just regular people would come and ride the trolley to Worcester mainly, and be able to do their shopping, and opened a whole other economic source for the people along the line. There were a number of Charlton local people who worked for the trolley, mostly as conductors or engineers. And of course the trolley barn at Charlton City was the major repair spot for the Worcester Southbridge Street Railway Company. Oh, they took advantage of it quite considerably. Not only that, but the town did as well. Rather than having school buses, they used to issue tickets to the students to travel on the trolley from, say, Richardson's Corner to Charlton Center. Well, it came from what we now know as North Oxford, where Route 20 is located presently. It bypassed the Oxbow, which was a narrow road, although it was a state-numbered road. It went across country to Richardson's Corner, and from there it came up what is Worcester Road today. Went over Old Worcester Road, and there was a trolley station at Morton Station Road, at the corner of Morton Station Road. And then it went cross country again and came out at the funeral home on Old Worcester Road, up Masonic Home Road and down on just off the roadway to Charlton City, and then it went down Route 20 to where the diner is today on Route 20 at Charlton City. Behind the diner you can still see the cut and fill that was used by the trolley, and it went across country and came onto the Southbridge Road and then followed Southbridge Road all the way to Southbridge Center.
When I was between 5 and 6, we used to go to Southbridge to the movies. And at that time, the movie house was on Main Street. And the Strand Theater was behind the Elm Street Fire Station in Southbridge, and we used to go there on the trolleys. And sometimes we'd go to Worcester, just for the ride. I'm giving it away now.
It lasted until from 1902 to 1927, 25 years, and it was replaced by buses after World War I. I think that, which was the heyday actually of the trolley system, the introduction of the automobile was the beginning of the downfall of the public transportation. By 1927, when it was discontinued, buses were put on the same route and continued to run for a number of years after that. But because of the situation between the buses and the streetcars, buses weren't hindered in the winter time with snow and ice on the line. There was no breakdown in the trolley wire overhead to be repaired. All these things made buses much more practical, in this area at least, for transportation, public transportation.
We had a hurricane, but prior to that we had a lot of rain. We had also torrential rainfalls, and of course it just softened up because it was an earthen dam. The dam itself was cement, but the dam was an earthen dam. Both the one at the Ice House Pond and Glen Echo. And so it just, and they were bagging it. The fire department were up there, volunteers were up there sandbagging, and it just, the water never let up. Then it just ate away, and then all of a sudden it just collapsed. It was fortunate that they had evacuated the people, but the saving factor was the pike. My father, being on the fire department and stuff, they evacuated Charlton City, and most of the people were at the Methodist Church and the Catholic Church. I think it's interesting to note that the cross on the Catholic Church is about the same elevation as the dam at Glen Echo. And actually they theorized that two dams broke simultaneously, one at the Ice House Pond, which is next to Stafford Street, between Stafford Street and which is now the Pike. The Pike wasn't open at the time, but they were in the process of building. But and where we lived, Luther Lincoln, they owned the house, him and his family owned the house. They were on the first floor, and my parents rented the second floor. The second floor, there was a porch that went out. That was the actual entrance. It was supported by 2 pillars which were right next to the brook, Katy Brook. And while we were evacuated, one of the things I noticed, I couldn't find my dog, which was, he was my constant companion back then. I was about 16. And so anyway, I couldn't find him. I'm saying, maybe he's back at the house. But by that time, water was pretty much chest high around the center down there at the base of the hill. And so I had a little, back then we used to have lawn parties at the churches, and you could win these bamboo canes. So I had a bamboo cane with me, so I went back in, and I was poking in front of it, so I knew there was a culvert there in front of the house, so I didn't want to fall into that. So I was poking with that. I got into the house, and I went upstairs, searched the house. The dog wasn't there, and I looked out on the porch. The porch, he was cowered over in the corner on the porch. The porch was evidently the columns had gone out from under it because it was just kind of teetering. And being young and ignorant or whatever, you know, not having too much fear, I jumped out onto that, grabbed the dog, back into the house, and we got up to, there was what we used to call a greenhouse. It was an abandoned house, which is right at the point where Marine Drake has built a house here today. It's not quite to the intersection. And somebody had said, "Look at that." And I turned around and looked, and our house just floated across the street and landed up against the house that was across the street, which still stands today, which probably our house kind of broke the water, because it kind of, when the water hit, it went both sides of that house. And our house kind of disintegrated to a point. Susie family lived, they were directly across the street from where Yankee Diner is today. And they were down below the road. There used to be a mill pond right there. They lived next to the mill pond. And in the process of evacuating people, because I was helping out. I was 16, so I was, you know, big enough to help out. We knew the Susie family had to get out of where they were. And 2 or 3 of us went down there to help them out. And the water was running so fast on Route 20 that you really couldn't you couldn't walk. You had to shuffle, you had to force your feet down against the pavement so you wouldn't get washed off. And I think it was young Eddie Susie that I had, and I put him on my shoulders, and we shuffled back up the hill while others helped the others evacuate. I think they pulled together tremendously. I mean, everybody was helping out and doing whatever they could for people. It was, you know, in time of disasters like that, I think people just, they forget all the other problems they may have, and they start looking to see what other people's problems, and everybody just chipped in and helped out and worked together.
Charlton residents fondly remember their district schooling. In the early 1970s, the high school districts of Charlton and Dudley were consolidated into a regional district.
Going to the little one-room school, I think, up on top of Dresser Hill, school number 7, district school, and that was always fun. We walked from where I lived about a mile to the top of the hill to school, back and forth every day. Yeah, unless it was storming, and then my mother would give us a ride, but generally we walked.
The first school I went to was number 6, Parker School. And I was there my first, of course, the rural schools had grades right up to high school. And I used to, the old saying is, well, I walked to school in snow, and sleet, and rain. Well, I did. I walked a mile to school. Wouldn't want to do it today, I'd get run over. And I was there. Lucy Stevens was my first teacher. And then in my second year, I was there a couple of months, and they closed the 3 district schools, 2, 4, and 6. And I then found out that the Charlton City existed, and I was down there in the big city.
Grammar school, the Charlton City School, and Charlton High.
We used to walk to school when we were in the elementary grades up to the top of Dresser Hill, where Dresser Hill Dairy is now. And we went no matter what the weather was. We could be walking in snow way over our knees to get there.
The first grade sat in the front row, second grade behind that, third was 6 grades in that school. You went first grade through the 6th. 7th grade, I had to get on the bus and go to Charlton Center. Oh yeah, Marjorie Jewett. She was nice. Like I say, my father and mother weren't very nice to me at all. But when I went to school, I was treated just as nice by Marjorie Jewett as all the other kids, so I had great respect for her. Oh yes, read, write, arithmetic, sure. History, oh yeah. Not in grade 1, but by the time we got to grade 6, we were going around all ready to go into grade 7, so.
The total number in that school was probably 15 to 18, maybe 20 at the most. Just a few in each grade. My grade, there was only 2 of us, Joe Cupic and myself. And we went there for the first 6 grades. Then we went to the school in Charlton Center, the old high school building, to the 7th grade, 7th grade through 12th. They had come to that school from the district schools and from city grade school.
That's a great question, because yeah, I heard a lot of unique stories, and I do. This is probably the best one. I do recall one where a young girl who still resides in Charlton, by the way, and this was many years ago, told me that she didn't have her homework because she had completed it, and she had a horse or horses and was out in a horse barn, and that the horse had defecated on her book and her homework. So I wasn't too accepting of that, and I said, well, I want to see it anyway. And she brought it in the next day in a plastic bag, and that's what evidently had happened, proof positive. I didn't collect it, by the way.
We drove school bus from, I think